I trusted her with my marriage. I trusted him with my heart for 6 months. My sister-in-law looked me in the eye and told me she was saving my relationship while she was secretly destroying it. Every Wednesday night, while I sat in my book club discussing novels about betrayal, the real betrayal was happening in my own living room. It took a neighbor's concern and a tiny camera to show me what everyone else apparently already knew: that I was the fool in my own story. This is how I discovered that the two people I trusted most had turned me into a stranger in my own home. Real-life inspired emotional stories from USA, Canada, UAE, and Europe, filled with truth, betrayal, love, and redemption. Each story touches the soul and reveals what really happens behind closed doors. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing to Golden Year Stories. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Margaret Hartwell, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and until 6 months ago I thought I knew exactly who I was. I was David's wife. We'd been married for 42 years. 42 years of building a life together, raising 2 children, surviving job losses and health scares, and all the ordinary struggles that either break a marriage or make it stronger. I thought ours had grown stronger. I was wrong. It started small, the way these things always do. David became distant. Not in any dramatic way. He didn't stop talking to me or start coming home late from work. He was retired, same as me. We were supposed to be enjoying these golden years together, traveling, taking up hobbies, spending time with our grandchildren. Instead, David spent hours in his study with the door closed. When I asked what he was doing, he'd say he was organizing old files or reading. When I suggested we take a trip to visit our daughter in Portland, he'd say maybe next month. When I reached for his hand while we watched television, he'd hold it for a moment and then find an excuse to get up. Needed water, needed to check the thermostat, needed something. Anything to create distance between us. I told myself it was normal. We'd been together for over 4 decades. Maybe this was just what happened when you got older. Maybe the passion faded and what remained was comfortable companionship. Maybe I was expecting too much. But late at night, lying beside a man who felt like a stranger, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That's when Linda got involved. Linda is David's younger sister. She's 64, divorced twice, and has always had an opinion about everything. We'd never been particularly close, but we were family, and we got along well enough at holidays and birthday parties. She lived about 20 minutes away in a condo overlooking the river. I hadn't seen much of her in recent months, so I was surprised when she called me one Tuesday afternoon in March. "Maggie, honey, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice full of concern. "Can I come over for coffee?" An hour later, she was sitting at my kitchen table, stirring cream into her cup with a troubled expression. "I don't want to overstep," she began, which should have been my first warning. People who say they don't want to overstep are usually about to vault right over the boundary. "But I've noticed that you and David seem strained lately. At Mom's birthday last month, you barely spoke to each other. I felt my defenses rise. We're fine, Linda. Every marriage goes through quiet phases." Of course," she said quickly, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Both of you. David is my brother, and your family. If there's anything I can do to help, I want to do it." Something about her earnestness made my throat tight. Maybe I had been keeping my worries too bottled up. Maybe I did need someone to talk to. "I don't know what's wrong," I admitted. "He's just somewhere else. Even when he's in the same room with me, he's somewhere else." Linda nodded sympathetically. Men can be like that, especially at this age. They start thinking about mortality, about what they've accomplished, about whether they're still vital and important. It's a crisis of purpose. So what do I do? "Let me talk to him," Linda offered. "Sometimes it's easier for a man to open up to his sister than to his wife. No offense, it's just that with you, there's all this history and expectation. With me, he might feel like he can be honest. Let me see if I can find out what's really going on in that head of his." It seemed like a generous offer, a loving offer. I was so desperate for help that I accepted immediately. "Would you really do that?" I asked. Linda said, squeezing my hand. That's what family is for. I'll come by when you're out and have a real heart-to-heart with David. We'll figure this out together, Maggie, I promise. I felt such relief, such gratitude. I actually hugged her when she left. God, I was such a fool. Linda started coming over regularly after that first conversation. She'd call me in the morning and ask about my schedule, and whenever I mentioned I'd be out, at my book club on Wednesday nights, at my volunteer shift at the library on Thursday afternoons, at my yoga class on Saturday mornings, she'd say, "Perfect, I'll stop by and check on David." At first, I thought it was working. David seemed lighter somehow. Not happier, exactly, but less burdened. He'd smile occasionally. He'd ask about my day. Once he even suggested we go out to dinner at the Italian place we used to love. See, Linda said when I called to thank her. I told you we'd figure this out. David just needed someone to talk to, someone who could help him work through whatever he's been feeling. Keep giving him space, Maggie. These things take time. So I gave him space. I gave him so much space that I barely existed in my own marriage anymore. Linda would call me after each visit with David and give me updates. "He's struggling with feeling irrelevant now that he's retired," she'd say. Or, "He's worried about his health. You know how men are about getting older." Or, "He feels like you two have grown apart, but he doesn't know how to bridge the gap." She always had an explanation. Always had advice. "Don't push him," she'd tell me. "Let him come to you. Men need to feel like they're making the choice." Or, "Try cooking his favorite meals. Remind him why he fell in love with you." Or, "Maybe you should make more of an effort with your appearance. Not that you don't look lovely, but we all get comfortable after so many years." That one stung. I started paying more attention to my hair, my clothes, my makeup. I felt like I was auditioning to keep my own husband. The worst part was that David seemed to appreciate Linda's involvement. He'd mention her casually. "Linda stopped by today." Or, "Linda thinks we should try that new restaurant downtown." It was always Linda said this, Linda suggested that. I should have been jealous. I should have been suspicious. Instead, I was grateful. I thought my sister-in-law was saving my marriage. This went on for 3 months. 3 months of Linda's regular visits, her concerned phone calls, her endless advice. 3 months of me trying harder and harder while David remained just out of reach, like a horizon that moved farther away the closer I tried to get. Then one day, my neighbor Rachel changed everything. It was a warm afternoon in early June. I was watering the garden when Rachel came over, her face troubled. "Maggie, can we talk?" she asked. Rachel and I had been friendly for years. She was 45, worked from home doing something with computers, and had always been kind and respectful. She'd helped me set up my smartphone, showed me how to use video calls with my grandchildren, and once brought me soup when I had the flu. "Of course," I said, setting down the hose. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I don't want to cause problems, but I've noticed something that's been bothering me. Linda's car has been parked in your driveway a lot lately. Usually when your car isn't here." "Yes," I said, not understanding her concern. "She's been helping with David. We've been going through a rough patch, and she's been counseling him." Rachel's expression shifted to something like pity. "Maggie, I work from home. My office window faces your house. Linda's been coming over at least 3 or 4 times a week, and she usually stays for 2 or 3 hours. Last Wednesday night, her car was here until almost 11. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. That can't be right. I was at book club Wednesday night, and when I got home at 9:30, David was alone watching television. Her car left at 10:45, Rachel said quietly. "I remember, because I was working late on a deadline and her headlights swept across my window when she backed out of your driveway." I stood there with the hose dripping water onto my shoes, trying to make sense of what she was telling me. Maybe they lost track of time talking," I said, but even as I spoke the words, they felt hollow. Rachel looked at me with such gentle concern. "Maggie, I know this is difficult to hear, but I think you need to know what's happening in your own home. My husband works in security, and he has access to some very discreet cameras. Small ones. If you want, we could set something up, just so you can see what's really going on when you're not there." "You mean spy on my husband?" "I mean protect yourself," Rachel said. "I mean find out the truth. Because from where I'm sitting, something isn't right. And you deserve to know what that something is." I wanted to be offended. I wanted to defend David and Linda and tell Rachel she was mistaken. But I couldn't. Because deep down, underneath all my denial and desperate hope, I knew she was right. I whispered, "Show me how to do it." 2 days later, Rachel and her husband helped me install 3 small cameras. One in the living room, hidden inside a decorative shelf. One in the kitchen, tucked behind a plant. And one in the hallway, disguised as a smoke detector. They were so small I could barely see them even when I knew where to look. The footage fed directly to an app on my phone that Rachel had set up for me. "You can watch live or review recordings," Rachel explained. "It's motion activated, so it only records when someone's in the room. Everything is saved to the cloud." "I feel sick doing this," I admitted. "I know," Rachel said, squeezing my shoulder. "But sometimes the truth makes us sick before it sets us free." That Wednesday, I went to my book club like always. We were discussing a mystery novel, something about a woman who discovers her perfect life was built on lies. The irony wasn't lost on me. But unlike every other Wednesday for the past 3 months, this time I had my phone in my purse. And at 7:30, while I pretended to listen to Margaret Olson's theories about the unreliable narrator, I opened the app and started watching my living room. At first, there was nothing. Just David sitting in his recliner, reading the newspaper. He looked so normal, so innocent. Then, at 7:42, the doorbell rang. David got up, and a moment later, Linda appeared on the screen. She wasn't dressed like someone coming over for a counseling session. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something fitted and dark blue. Her hair was styled. She was wearing makeup. She looked like she was going on a date. David kissed her cheek in greeting. Nothing unusual there. But then Linda's hand lingered on his arm. She said something I couldn't hear, and David laughed in a way I hadn't heard in months. They walked into the living room together, and Linda sat on the sofa. Not on the opposite end. Not in the other chair. She sat in the middle of the sofa and patted the cushion next to her. David sat beside her. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. "Maggie," someone at the book club asked. "I'm fine." I lied. "Just need to check on something." "Excuse me." I went to the bathroom and locked the door. Then I sat on the closed toilet lid and watched my marriage end. I couldn't hear what they were saying. The cameras Rachel had installed didn't have audio, something about privacy laws and what was legal. But I didn't need to hear them. I could see everything. Linda reached over and took David's hand. Not a comforting, sisterly touch. She held his hand the way a woman holds her lover's hand. Her thumb traced circles on his palm. David didn't pull away. They talked for a while, their heads close together. Linda laughed at something he said, touching his shoulder, his arm, his knee. Each touch lasted a little longer than the one before. Then Linda stood up and walked to the kitchen. I switched to that camera and watched her open my refrigerator like she owned it, pull out a bottle of wine, my wine, the expensive Pinot Noir I'd been saving, and pour 2 glasses. She brought them back to the living room. They toasted to something. David smiled at her with such warmth, such affection, such presence. He was completely there with her in a way he hadn't been with me in over a year. I wanted to leave the bathroom. I wanted to drive home immediately and burst through the door and demand to know what the hell was happening. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching my phone screen, watching my husband and my sister-in-law become intimate in my own home. At 8:15, Linda kicked off her shoes and curled her legs up under her on the sofa. She was completely comfortable, completely at home. David put his arm around her shoulders. His arm around her shoulders. I made a sound then, something between a gasp and a sob. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. "Maggie, honey, you sick?" It was Patricia, the book club host. "I'm fine," I called out, my voice strangled. "Just a stomach thing. I think I need to go home." "Do you need someone to drive you?" No, I'll be fine." I stumbled out of the bathroom, grabbed my purse, made some excuse about food poisoning, and practically ran to my car. But I didn't go home, I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I drove to a parking lot 2 blocks away and sat there in the dark, watching my phone, watching my husband betray me in real time. At 9 o'clock, they were still on the sofa, still close. David was stroking Linda's hair. She had her head on his shoulder. At 9:30, I usually came home. But tonight I didn't. Tonight I stayed in that parking lot and kept watching. At 9:45, Linda sat up. She said something to David, and he nodded. Then she leaned in and kissed him. Not on the cheek, on the mouth, and David kissed her back. I screamed. Right there in my car in an empty parking lot. I screamed until my throat was raw. Then I cried. Then I watched some more because I had to know. I had to see all of it. They kissed for a long time. David's hands were in Linda's hair, on her back, pulling her closer. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It wasn't a mistake. It was the kiss of two people who had done this before, many times before. When they finally broke apart, Linda stood up and started walking toward the hallway, toward the bedroom. But David caught her hand and shook his head. He pointed at his watch, said something, and Linda's face fell with disappointment. She nodded reluctantly. They kissed again at the door, and then Linda left. I watched David lock the door behind her. He stood there for a moment, his hand on the doorframe, his expression content. Then he went to the kitchen, put the wine glasses in the dishwasher, and checked his watch again. He was making sure he had time to erase the evidence before I got home. At 10 o'clock, I pulled myself together enough to drive. I took the long way home, giving myself time to think, to process, to decide what to do with this information. When I walked in at 10:15, David was in his recliner reading a book. He looked up and smiled. "How was book club?" he asked. "Fine," I said, and I was amazed at how normal my voice sounded. Quiet. Read, watched some TV. The usual? The usual. As if Linda hadn't been here for 3 hours. As if they hadn't kissed on my sofa. As if my entire world hadn't just shattered. "I'm tired," I said. "I think I'll go to bed." "Okay, I'll be up in a bit." I went to our bedroom and closed the door. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled up the recordings on my phone. I watched the whole thing again. And again, making sure I hadn't imagined it. Making sure it was real. It was real. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside my husband, this stranger I'd shared a life with for 42 years, and I planned. The next morning, I called Linda. "Good morning. Maggie?" she said cheerfully. "How are you?" "I'm okay," I lied. "I wanted to thank you again for everything you've been doing. For helping David. For helping us." "Of course, sweetie. That's what family does. Actually, I was planning to stop by today. Are you going to be home?" "No, I have errands to run. But you should definitely come by. David could use the company." "Perfect. I'll be there around 2, Linda," I said, my voice sugary sweet. "What you're doing for us, it means the world to me. I don't know what I'd do without you." There was a pause. Then Linda said, "You don't have to thank me, Maggie. I just want you and David to be happy." I hung up and immediately called Rachel. "Can you come over?" I asked. "I need help with something." Rachel arrived within the hour. I showed her the footage from the night before. She watched in silence, her face growing angrier with each passing minute. "Oh, Maggie," she said when it was over, "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry, help me. I need to gather more evidence. I need to see how far this goes. And I need to figure out what to do with it." "What do you want?" I looked at her, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt powerful. "I want the truth," I said. "All of it. And then I want everyone to know what they've done." For the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I became a spy in my own life, documenting every betrayal, collecting every piece of evidence. I went about my normal routine: book club on Wednesdays, library volunteer shift on Thursdays, yoga on Saturday mornings. But now, every time I left the house, I was watching. Always watching. Linda came over like clockwork. Sometimes 3 times a week, sometimes 4. And every single visit, the cameras captured everything. I watched them hold hands. I watched them kiss. I watched Linda bring over meals she'd cooked. Meals she'd served to David on my dishes, at my table. I watched them slow dance in my living room to music I couldn't hear. I watched my husband be romantic and attentive and present in ways he hadn't been with me in years. Once, I watched Linda bring over a small overnight bag. She changed clothes in my bathroom, changed into one of my robes. That nearly broke me. Seeing her in my robe in my home, with my husband. But they never went to the bedroom. David was always careful about that. He'd check his watch, check the time, make sure they stopped before I was due home. He was protecting himself, protecting them both. Rachel came over regularly to check on me. She'd sit at my kitchen table and watch me review footage, and sometimes she'd just hold my hand while I cried. "You need to confront them," she'd say. "This is killing you." "Not yet," I'd reply. "I need more. I need to understand how long this has been going on. I need to know everything." So I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I started going through David's phone when he was in the shower. I checked his email on the family computer when he went to the store. I looked through his desk drawers, his car, his wallet, and I found things. So many things. Text messages between David and Linda going back 8 months. Long before Linda had ever offered to help our marriage. Messages that made it clear this wasn't just emotional. They were planning a future together. One message from David said, "I can't keep doing this to her. We need to tell Maggie the truth." Linda's response, "Not yet. She's fragile right now. Let me keep working on her, keep her trusting me. When the time is right, we'll tell her together. She'll understand that we fell in love. These things happen." Another message from Linda, "I bought the lingerie you liked. Can't wait to show you Wednesday." David's response, "Wednesday is perfect. I'll make sure M has plans." He called me M like I was an inconvenience to be managed. I found receipts for a hotel outside of town. 6 different visits over the past 4 months. They'd been meeting there when my schedule wasn't predictable enough, when they needed more than a few stolen hours in my living room. I found a credit card statement showing charges to jewelry stores, flower shops, restaurants I'd never been to. David was courting his sister, taking her on dates, buying her gifts. With our money. With the money we'd saved together for our retirement. The worst was the letter I found tucked in the back of his desk drawer. It was in Linda's handwriting, dated 3 months ago. "My darling David, I never thought I could feel this way again. After 2 failed marriages, I thought I was broken, incapable of real love. But what we have is real. It's been real since that night last fall when I came over upset about my divorce, and you held me, and we talked for hours, and I realized you were the man I'd been looking for my whole life. I know this is complicated. I know Maggie is your wife. But she doesn't understand you the way I do. She doesn't make you feel alive the way I do. We deserve this happiness, David. We deserve each other. Soon we'll be together properly. Soon this will all be out in the open, and we can finally live the life we were meant to have. I love you. Always, Linda." I sat at David's desk and read that letter 5 times. Each time, I understood a little more. This had started last fall. 9 months ago, Linda had come over crying about her second divorce, and David had comforted her, and somehow comfort had turned into something else. Then, when I'd noticed David growing distant and had confided my worries to Linda, she'd seen an opportunity. She'd offered to help our marriage, not to save it, but to destroy it. Every piece of advice she'd given me was designed to push David further away. Give him space. Don't pressure him. Let him come to you. Meanwhile, she was filling that space herself, and the plan was working. David was pulling away from me more every day. He was falling deeper in love with his sister, and I was supposed to be so grateful for Linda's help that I'd never suspect the truth. It was brilliant, really. Diabolical, but brilliant. I made copies of everything. I saved screenshots of every text message. I downloaded every video from the cameras to 3 different storage drives. I photographed receipts and letters and credit card statements. I created a folder on my computer labeled Garden Photos and put it all there. Then I called my daughter Emily, who lived in Portland. "Mum," she answered, surprised. I didn't usually call in the middle of the day. "Is everything okay?" "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest with me. Has your father seemed different to you lately?" There was a long pause. "Different how?" "Happier. More engaged. Like he's excited about something." Another pause, longer this time. "What's going on? Please, Emily. Just answer the question." "Yes," she admitted. "The last few times we've talked, he's seemed lighter, I guess. More like his old self. I thought maybe you two had worked through whatever was bothering him." "Why are you asking? And has Aunt Linda mentioned anything to you?" "About your father?" "About me. She called me about a month ago," Emily said slowly. "She said she was worried about you and Dad. Said you'd been going through a rough patch and she was trying to help. She asked if I'd noticed anything." "Mom, you're scaring me. What's happening?" "Can you come home this weekend?" I asked. "I need you here. I need someone on my side when I do what I have to do." "Mom, please, Emily. Just trust me. Come home this weekend. Friday if you can. And don't tell your father or your brother that I called. Don't tell anyone," she said, her voice worried. "Okay, I'll be there Friday evening. But Mom, you have to tell me what's going on." "I will," I promised. When you get here, I'll tell you everything. I hung up and sat in the silence of my kitchen. In this house where I'd raised my children, celebrated holidays, built a life. This house that no longer felt like home. Then I opened my laptop and started composing an email. The subject line was simple: family emergency. Please come. I sent it to my son James, who lived 2 hours away, to David's brother Robert, to David's mother, who was 86 and lived in a nursing home but still had all her faculties, to my own sister Helen, who'd never liked David much but had kept her opinions to herself for the sake of family harmony. I invited them all to dinner. Sunday night. 6 o'clock. I told them it was urgent, that I needed to discuss something important about David's health. It was the only way I could think of to get everyone together without arousing suspicion. Everyone replied within hours. They'd all be there. Then I did one more thing. I called a lawyer. Maggie Hartwell, I said when the receptionist answered. I need to schedule a consultation. I want to file for divorce. A Friday evening, Emily arrived. She pulled into the driveway at 6:30, and I met her at the door before David could. I hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume, drawing strength from having my daughter close. Dad's in his study, I whispered. Come upstairs with me. We need to talk privately. Emily followed me to the guest bedroom, her face tight with worry. She was 39 years old, a hospital administrator, smart and capable, and so much like me it sometimes hurt to look at her. I closed the door and handed her my phone. Watch this, I said. I'd compiled a 10-minute video, the worst moments from 2 weeks of footage. David and Linda holding hands, kissing, dancing, Linda in my robe. All of it, condensed into 10 minutes of undeniable truth. Emily watched in silence. I saw her face go through every emotion I'd felt: confusion, disbelief, shock, anger, disgust. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Mom, she whispered. Oh my God, Mom. Aunt Linda? His own sister? I know. How long? 9 months. Maybe longer. Emily stood up abruptly and started pacing. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to go downstairs right now and… No, I said firmly. Not yet. Tomorrow is Saturday. Linda always comes over Saturday mornings when I'm at yoga. I'm going to skip yoga. I'm going to hide upstairs and let her come in like always. And then I'm going to walk down those stairs and confront them both while you record everything on your phone. I need her to admit it. I need David to admit it. I need it on video. Then Sunday, Emily asked. Sunday, the whole family comes for dinner, and everyone learns the truth. Emily stared at me. Mom, you're amazing. I don't know how you're holding it together. I'm not, I admitted. I'm breaking apart. But I can't fall apart yet, not until this is done. Will you help me? Of course I will. She hugged me again, fierce and protective. Whatever you need. That night at dinner, David asked Emily about her trip, about her job, about her life. He was charming and attentive, the devoted father. I watched him lie with his smile, with his questions, with every word out of his mouth. Your mother and I are so proud of you, he said. I excused myself before I said something I couldn't take back. Saturday morning came. I got dressed in my yoga clothes like always. I told David I'd be back around 11. He barely looked up from his newspaper. Have fun, he said. Emily was already in the guest room waiting. We'd planned everything the night before. She'd stay hidden with her phone ready to record. I'd go to my car, drive around the block, park 2 streets over, and come back through the backyard. I'd wait upstairs until Linda arrived, and then I'd make my entrance. At 9:15. I watched from the upstairs window as Linda's car pulled into the driveway. She was wearing jeans and a pretty green sweater. She'd brought pastries from the bakery I loved. The bakery she knew I loved. Even her cruelty had those little thoughtful touches. I heard the doorbell, heard David answer, heard their voices downstairs, warm and familiar and intimate. Did you miss me? Linda asked. Always, David replied. Emily stood beside me in the hallway, her phone already recording. I nodded to her, and together we started down the stairs. They were in the kitchen. Linda was sitting on the counter, my counter, and David was standing between her legs, his hands on her waist. They were kissing. I cleared my throat. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. The look on their faces would have been comical if it wasn't destroying my life, David stammered. You're supposed to be at yoga. I changed my mind, I said calmly. I could feel Emily behind me, filming everything. I decided I'd rather spend my Saturday morning at home, with my husband, And my dear, helpful sister-in-law. Linda had gone pale. Maggie. This isn't what it looks like. Really? I said. Because it looks like you're sitting on my kitchen counter with your tongue down my husband's throat. What else could it possibly look like? We can explain. David started. Explain what? I interrupted, my voice rising. Explain how you've been having an affair with your sister for 9 months. Explain how you used my trust to get access to my home, to my husband. Explain how every piece of advice you gave me was designed to push David away so you could have him for yourself. Linda slid off the counter, trying to compose herself. Maggie, you don't understand. We fell in love. It wasn't planned. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated. Love just happened. Between a man and his sister. While his wife of 42 years was sitting at book club, trusting you both. I'm not his biological sister, Linda said desperately. We're not related by blood. His parents adopted me when I was 8. It's not like you think. Oh, well, that makes it so much better, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You're only his adopted sister. That means betraying me is perfectly acceptable. David finally found his voice. Maggie, I didn't mean for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. You didn't want to hurt me. Then what have you been doing for the past 9 months, David? What do you call sneaking around behind my back? Meeting your sister in hotels, kissing her on our sofa, buying her jewelry with our retirement money. His face went white. How do you? No, I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have cameras, David. I've been watching you for 2 weeks. I have video of everything, every kiss, every touch, every moment you thought you were getting away with it. Linda made a small sound of distress. You've been spying on us? I've been protecting myself? I corrected. And it's a good thing I did, because now I have all the evidence I need. For the divorce. For making sure everyone knows exactly what you've both done. Divorce, David said weakly. Did you think I was going to stay? I asked incredulously. Did you actually think I'd forgive this? That we'd all just move on like nothing happened? Maggie, please, Linda begged. Let us explain. David and I, we're happy together. Happier than either of us has been in years. You deserve to be happy too. We could all move forward from this. Oh, stop, I said. Just stop talking. I don't want to hear about your happiness. I don't want to hear your justifications. I want you out of my house. Now, Maggie, David started. You too, I said, turning to him. Pack a bag. You're leaving. I want you both out in the next hour, or I'm calling the police and filing trespassing charges against Linda. This is my house too. David protested. I said. My lawyer filed papers yesterday. You'll be served on Monday. Until then, get out. Emily stepped forward, still filming. You heard her, Dad. Leave. David looked at his daughter, saw the disgust on her face, and something in him crumpled. Emily, sweetheart. Don't, Emily said coldly. Don't call me that. Don't talk to me at all right now. Linda grabbed her purse. Maggie, please, can we just talk about this like adults? We're done talking, I said. We're done with everything. Both of you have exactly 1 hour. After that, I'm changing the locks. They left. Linda fled out the front door without another word. David went upstairs to pack, moving like a man in a dream. Emily and I stood in the kitchen watching him go. Are you okay? Emily asked. No, I said honestly. But I will be. Sunday evening arrived like a storm I'd been watching build on the horizon. All day I'd prepared. Cooking David's mother's favorite pot roast. Setting the dining room table with our good china, arranging flowers in the center like this was a normal family dinner. Emily helped me in the kitchen. Both of us moving through the motions while my stomach churned with anxiety. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked for the 10th time. We could just tell them individually. No, I said, slicing vegetables with more force than necessary. They need to hear it together. They need to see what David and Linda have done. No more lies. At 5:30, my son James arrived with his wife Andrea. He hugged me at the door, his face concerned. Mum, what's going on? He asked. Your email said there was an emergency about Dad's health. Is he sick? Everyone's coming, I said, deflecting. Let's wait until we're all here. David's brother Robert showed up next, then my sister Helen. Finally, at 6 o'clock sharp, the care facility van pulled up with David's mother, Dorothy. At 86, she still had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She took my hand as I helped her inside. Margaret, she said, What's this about? Where's David? He'll be here soon, I said. Please, everyone, come sit in the living room. They gathered, confused and worried, filling my living room with the people who mattered most. Emily stood beside me, her phone in her pocket, ready to show the videos if I needed proof. Then the doorbell rang. I'd called David that morning. Told him if he wanted any chance of maintaining a relationship with his children, his mother, his brother, if he wanted any shred of dignity left, he'd come to this dinner. He'd agreed, his voice hollow. I opened the door. David stood there, looking 10 years older than he had 2 days ago. Behind him was Linda. I didn't invite you, I said to Linda. I'm family, she said, lifting her chin defiantly. I have a right to be here. Fine, I said. Come in. Let everyone see you. They entered and the room went silent. Everyone could feel the tension, the wrongness of this gathering. Please, sit down, I said, gesturing to the 2 remaining chairs. They sat. I stood in front of the fireplace, facing them all, my family, the people I'd loved and trusted and built my life around. Thank you all for coming. I began, my voice surprisingly steady. I know you're confused about why I asked you here. I told you it was about David's health, but that was a lie. I'm sorry for deceiving you, but I needed everyone together. What I have to say affects this entire family. Dorothy leaned forward in her chair. Margaret, you're scaring me. What's happened? I looked at David, at Linda. They both looked terrified. For the past 9 months, I said, my husband has been having an affair with Linda. The room erupted. What? Robert shouted. James stood up. Dad, is this true? David sat frozen, his face grey. Linda started to speak, but I held up my hand. I have proof, I said. Videos, text messages, hotel receipts. This is insane, Linda said, her voice shaking. Maggie is having some kind of breakdown. She's been acting paranoid, installing cameras, spying on David. Show them, I said to Emily. Emily pulled out her phone and connected it to our TV. Within seconds, the footage was playing on the big screen. David and Linda in my living room, holding hands, kissing, Linda in my robe. Dorothy made a sound like a wounded animal. Robert's face turned purple with rage. James couldn't look at the screen, staring instead at his father with betrayal written across every feature. Helen just whispered, "Oh, Maggie." When the video ended, the silence was deafening. How could you? Dorothy finally said, looking at Linda. I took you into this family. I raised you as my own daughter. And you? You seduced my son. I didn't seduce anyone, Linda said, tears streaming down her face. We fell in love. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Love? Robert stood up, his voice shaking with fury. You call this love? Sneaking around, lying, betraying Maggie. That's not love, Linda. That's selfishness. That's cruelty. And you, Dorothy turned to David, 42 years. Maggie gave you 42 years of her life. She stood by you through everything. And this is how you repay her. David couldn't meet his mother's eyes. Mom, I don't, she said coldly. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to know if it's true. Look at me. David, look at your mother and tell me the truth. Are you having an affair with Linda? The room held its breath. Yes, David whispered. Dorothy closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears. Then you are not the son I raised. The man I raised would never do this. James had been silent, but now he spoke. How long? Jamie's, David started. Long, 9 months. I answered for him. It started last fall. Linda came over upset about her divorce, and David comforted her, and they claimed they fell in love. And when exactly were you planning to tell Mom? James demanded. Or were you just going to keep lying until she figured it out on her own? Oh, wait. That's exactly what you did. We were going to tell her, Linda said. We were waiting for the right time, the right time. Andrea, James's wife, spoke up. She'd been sitting quietly, but now her voice was fierce. There's no right time to tell someone you're destroying their marriage. You're a coward, Linda. And you? She looked at David. You're worse. At least Linda doesn't have children watching this. Emily and James have to live with knowing their father betrayed their mother with his own sister. I'm not his biological sister, Linda said desperately. Does that matter? Helen snapped. You were raised as siblings. You called the same people Mom and Dad. You grew up together. The fact that you're not biologically related doesn't make this any less disgusting. Robert walked over to David. You need to leave now. Before I do something I'll regret. This is my house, David protested weakly. No, I said. It's not. Not anymore. I filed for divorce Friday. The papers will be served tomorrow. I want the house, David. I want my retirement accounts. I want everything we built together, because you forfeited your right to any of it when you decided to have an affair with Linda. You can't just take everything, David said. Watch me. I replied. I have evidence of adultery. I have proof you've been spending our retirement money on hotels and gifts for your mistress. Any judge will see exactly what you are. Dorothy struggled to her feet, and Robert moved to help her. She walked over to me and took my hands. Margaret, she said, her voice breaking. I am so sorry. I'm sorry my son did this to you. I'm sorry I raised him to think this was acceptable. You are a good woman. You have always been a good wife, a good mother, a good daughter-in-law. You deserve so much better than this. She turned to Linda. You are no longer welcome in this family. I don't want to see you. I don't want to speak to you. As far as I'm concerned, I no longer have a daughter. Linda sobbed. Mom, please, don't call me that, Dorothy said coldly. You lost the right to call me that when you betrayed this family. Then she turned to David. And you. I am ashamed to call you my son, ashamed that I raised someone capable of this cruelty. You will not visit me. You will not call me. When I die, you will not come to my funeral. Do you understand? David was crying now. Opally, Mom, please, don't do this, Dorothy said. You made this choice. Now live with the consequences. She looked at Robert. Take me home. I can't be here anymore. As Robert helped his mother toward the door, Emily stepped forward. Dad, she said, her voice trembling. I don't know if I can forgive this. I don't know if I even want to try. What you did to Mom, what you're still doing by sitting here trying to justify it. It's changed how I see you. It's changed everything. Emily, I'm still your father, David pleaded. Are you? She asked. Because the father I knew would never hurt Mom like this. The father I knew had integrity. Honor, love. I don't know who you are anymore. James stood too. Don't call me, he said. Don't come to my house. Don't try to see your grandchildren. Not until you figure out how to be a man worthy of the title father. And honestly, I don't think that's ever going to happen. One by one, they left. My sister Helen hugged me before she went, whispering, You're stronger than I ever knew. I'm proud of you. Finally, only David, Linda, Emily, and I remained, I said to them both. Linda stood, mascara running down her face. Maggie, I never meant. Get out, I said. Now, before I call the police and have you removed. She fled. David stood more slowly. Maggie, can we talk? Alone? No, I said. We're done talking. We're done with everything. I want you out of my life. 42 years, he said. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for everything, I replied, until you threw it all away. Now it counts for nothing. He left, and when the door closed behind him, I finally allowed myself to collapse. The weeks after that terrible Sunday dinner passed in a blur of lawyers' paperwork and sleepless nights. Emily stayed with me for 2 weeks, handling phone calls, making sure I ate, holding me while I cried. James came down every weekend. Even my sister Helen moved into the guest room for a month, refusing to leave me alone. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. With all my evidence, the videos, the text messages, the hotel receipts, the credit card statements, David's lawyer advised him not to fight. I got the house. I got my full share of the retirement accounts, plus half of David's as compensation for adultery. I got everything I asked for. David moved into a small apartment across town. Linda, from what I heard through the family grapevine, had to move to another city entirely. No one would speak to her. Not Dorothy, not Robert, not her friends. Her betrayal had made her a pariah. Part of me felt guilty about that. But only a small part, and only late at night when I was too tired to be angry anymore. The hardest part wasn't the divorce. It wasn't dividing up 42 years of accumulated possessions, deciding who got the photo albums and the wedding china and the Christmas ornaments we'd collected together. The hardest part was reconciling the man I'd loved with the man who'd betrayed me. I kept asking myself, when did he stop loving me? Was it gradual, or was there a specific moment when he looked at me and felt nothing? How many times had he kissed me goodbye and then gone to meet Linda? How many times had he told me he loved me while planning a future without me? My therapist, yes, I got a therapist, which I should have done years ago, told me I might never have those answers. That closure doesn't always come from understanding. Sometimes it comes from accepting that you'll never fully understand. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I did something I'd been planning since that terrible night in the parking lot, watching my marriage end on a phone screen. I sold the house. Emily was shocked. "Mom, are you sure? This is your home. All your memories are here." "Exactly," I said. "All my memories are here. The good ones and the terrible ones. I need a fresh start. I need a place that's just mine, where David has never been, where I can build something new." I bought a small condo downtown near the river with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony overlooking the water. It was modern and bright and nothing like the traditional home David and I had shared. I furnished it with new things. A comfortable reading chair I picked out myself, artwork from local galleries, plants that I didn't have to check with anyone before buying. Rachel helped me move. She'd become one of my closest friends through all of this. Standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes, she opened a bottle of wine. "To new beginnings," she toasted. "To new beginnings," I echoed. I joined a book club at the library, a different one where no one knew my story. I started taking art classes. I discovered I love painting, even though I wasn't particularly good at it. I volunteered at a women's shelter, helping other women who were rebuilding their lives after betrayal. I learned to be alone without being lonely. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into David at the grocery store. We stood in the produce section, separated by a display of apples, and looked at each other like strangers. He looked older, tired. There were new lines around his eyes, and his hair had gone completely white. "Maggie," he said. "Oh, I'm well," I said, and realized it was true. "How are you?" He hesitated. "I'm managing. I wanted to tell you Linda and I aren't together anymore. We tried, but it didn't work." Turned out the affair was more exciting than the actual relationship. I waited for the satisfaction, the vindication. It didn't come. I just felt nothing. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Not because I wanted him back, not because I forgave him, but because I'd spent enough time being angry, and I was tired of it. "I know this doesn't change anything," David continued, "but I am sorry for all of it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." "Yes," I said simply. "I did." "Are you happy?" he asked. I considered the question. Was I happy? Not in the way I'd been happy in my marriage, back when I thought I knew what my future looked like, but in a different way, a quieter, more honest way. "I'm getting there," I said. "Every day I'm getting a little closer." He nodded. "I'm glad, I really am." We said goodbye then, and I finished my shopping. As I drove home to my bright, sunny condo, I realized something profound. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't love him either. I just didn't feel anything at all, and that was freedom. A year after the divorce, Dorothy passed away. She was 87 and had lived a full life. The funeral was small and dignified. David was there, standing in the back, but he didn't approach the family. He'd kept his mother's wishes. She'd never spoken to him again after that Sunday dinner. After the service, "Thank you for coming," he said. "Mom would have wanted you here. She always thought of you as a daughter. More so than—" He trailed off, not needing to finish. "She was a wonderful woman." I said, "I'm going to miss her." "She left you something?" Robert said, handing me a small envelope. "She gave it to me a month before she died. Made me promise to give it to you after she was gone." I opened it later, sitting in my car in the parking lot. Inside was a short letter in Dorothy's shaky handwriting. "Dear Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know that you brought joy to this family. You were the daughter I always wished for, kind, strong, loyal, true. What David did was unforgivable, and it broke my heart as much as it broke yours. But I want you to know that you survived it. You stood up for yourself. You demanded better. And that takes courage that many people never find. Don't let what happened make you afraid to trust again. Don't let it make you bitter. You have so much love left to give, and so much life left to live. Be happy, Margaret. You've earned it. With all my love, Dorothy." I cried then. Not for the marriage I'd lost, but for the woman who'd loved me even when her own son had betrayed me. For the life I'd lived and the life I was still building. Today, I'm 70 years old. It's been 2 years since I discovered the truth about David and Linda. 2 years since my world fell apart, and I had to put it back together piece by piece. I have dinner with Emily and James regularly. I'm teaching my grandchildren to paint. I have friends, real friends like Rachel, who see me for who I am, not who I am in relation to someone else. I wake up every morning in my sunny condo and drink coffee on my balcony, watching the river flow by, and I feel at peace. Sometimes people ask me if I regret those 42 years with David. If I feel like I wasted my life, I don't. Those years gave me my children. They gave me experiences and memories and lessons. They made me who I am. The fact that they ended in betrayal doesn't erase all the good that came before. But I don't regret leaving either. I don't regret demanding better. I don't regret standing up for myself and refusing to be anyone's second choice. My sister-in-law told me she was helping my marriage, but the hidden camera footage showed she was meeting my husband every night, and I was the only one who didn't know. But here's what I learned: sometimes not knowing isn't ignorance. Sometimes it's trust. And the fact that my trust was betrayed says everything about them and nothing about me. I trusted in good faith. I loved wholeheartedly. I built a life with honor and integrity. When I discovered the truth, I didn't shrink from it. I faced it head on, documented it, exposed it, and walked away with my dignity intact. And now, at 70 years old, I'm finally living the life I deserve. Not the life someone else chose for me. Not the life I thought I was supposed to want. But the life that's truly, authentically mine. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this: it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to demand honesty. It's never too late to start over. I thought my life was ending when I discovered the truth. But it was actually just beginning. And that, more than anything, is what vindication feels like.